But next, hospitals save lives but drain wallets. Swamp Watch sheds light on how centres for healing can also rip you off. Next. Tonight we continue our three-part Swamp Watch series on one of the issues we face, healthcare. It's America's biggest industry by far, the biggest expense for the average family, and, outrageously, an expense that increasingly cripples families. Medical bills have now become a factor in 62% of personal bankruptcies. In 1981, that number was only 8%. Clearly, something has gone very wrong. Last week, we explained how the big problem with healthcare in America, the reason for many of Obamacare's failures and the reason Republicans are having such problems reforming it, is that it all costs so much. We showed how the pharmaceutical industry and its corrupt stooges in Congress keep drug prices needlessly high. Tonight, we'll look at the role hospitals play in the health swamp triangle. Hospitals sound like wonderful, charitably minded institutions. In fact, most of them avoid paying taxes because they are charitable non-profits. But don't let that fool you. Today's hospitals make huge profits and pay their bosses huge salaries. The local hospital with your friendly doctor has been replaced by vast mega hospitals run by administrators on multi-million-dollar packages. Like Michael Dowling, a former government bureaucrat who in 2015 raked in $10 million as CEO of North Shore University Hospital on Long Island. $10 million a year? Let's all join a non-profit. So those insanely expensive hospital bills you get, they're not making wide-eyed, fresh out of med school doctors and nurses wealthy. They're enriching hospital administrators and CEOs. In fact, if you're a go-getting chief executive, healthcare and pharmaceuticals is truly the sector to be in. Exploiting sick people through vital but vastly overpriced services that might bankrupt them, it's really a great gig. Among the 200 highest paid executives at public companies, those in healthcare and pharmaceuticals were paid on average $37 million, more than any other sector. Telecommunications, real estate, industrial. Non-profit hospitals are cash cows for CEOs. A Wall Street Journal analysis found that the largest non-profit compensation package went to the CEO of non-profit hospital Ascension, Mr. Anthony Tarsini. He made a cool $17.6 million. Now look, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against high pay. I believe in markets and I believe people who create value in the marketplace should be rewarded. But it's got to be fair, especially in something like healthcare, where there are vast amounts of taxpayer money sloshing around. And healthcare is not a fair market. It's a rigged market. The reason hospitals can pay their bosses so much is that they charge so much. They charge you, whether directly through your insurance or through your taxes, obscene amounts of money for medical services and supplies. Their prices are listed in what's called a charge master. The charge master price isn't based on anything objective like, cost. Even something as simple as a pack of gauze pads could cost the patient as much as $77. Amazon sells 400 of them for $15. Dear hospitals, if you want to save us all some money, you might want to check it out. It even comes with free 2-day shipping. But how do the new breed of mega hospitals get away with this kind of profiteering? Simple. Squeeze out the competition. Over the last few years, we've seen wave after wave of mergers in the hospital sector, with big brand name conglomerates like New York Presbyterian buying up networks of doctors and clinics to funnel patients their way. A study looking at hospital mergers found that they didn't improve quality of care and that, quote, hospital consolidation generally results in higher prices. When hospitals merge in already concentrated markets, the price increase can be dramatic, often exceeding 20%. And remember, these mega hospitals aren't just harming patients, they're also costing taxpayers more money, while making insiders, including corrupt politicians, super wealthy. Perhaps the most prominent is private healthcare executive turned politician Rick Scott. Yes, the very same Rick Scott who's now the Republican governor of Florida. He was once chairman of a hospital network, and while in that job, had the swampy distinction of presiding over the largest fraud settlement in U.S. history. In 2002, the Hospital Corporation of America, then known as Columbia HCA, paid a $1.7 billion settlement for fraudulently billing taxpayer-funded Medicare by inflating the seriousness of diagnoses and by filing false cost reports. Among other swampy practices, they admitted to giving doctors partnerships in their company hospitals as a kickback for those doctors referring patients to the HCA. And what was the quality of care like at Rick Scott's network of hospitals? According to the book Money-Driven Medicine, not good. Scott was focused on profits, not patient care. One technician complained about having to watch 72 heart monitors at once. Nurses complained that babies in the neonatal unit were left unattended for up to 3 hours. Despite the fraud and 2 of his executives going to jail, Scott, who resigned as chairman of a $10 million settlement and left with his $300 million worth of stock. Then, after getting rich off fraud and failure in healthcare, he somehow got elected governor of Florida and now boasts that he helped shape the GOP plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. Great. Just the kind of person you want involved. HCA was a private hospital, but non-profits have gotten in on the racket as well through conspiracy, price fixing and building so-called super monopolies. The tax-exempt University of Pittsburgh Medical Center is a giant of a hospital trying to get even bigger. UPMC controlled 55% of the market, has recorded $13 billion in revenue and over $500 million in operating profit. Quite the charity. Meanwhile, the region's main health insurer, Highmark, controlled between 60 to 80% of the market. As Stephen Brill documents in his fantastic book America's Bitter Pill, this mega hospital and health insurer was sued in a case that, quote, alleged an outright conspiracy between UPMC and Highmark to control healthcare prices in western Pennsylvania. According to the complaint, the hospital and insurer were colluding to eliminate competition and drive up prices, harming the patients they're supposed to care about. Brill writes, Highmark agreed to pay sharply increased prices to UPMC, which it would be able to do because it could raise premiums with no fear of competition. The court eventually forced both sides to settle the case. And guess how much the CEO of this tax-exempt non-profit hospital was making while trying to establish a regional monopoly? $4 million a year. Even regular doctors are in on the racket. In his memoir, Doctored, The Disillusionment of an American Physician, Sandeep Jauhar describes how doctors refer patients to each other and keep patients in hospital longer than necessary, risking the chance of picking up infections, just to make more money. While you're watching all the political point scoring in Washington next week over the Senate healthcare bill, just remember that it is all colossally beside the point unless those grandstanding politicians in the pockets of the health industry actually do something about healthcare costs. And that will only happen if we drain the health swamp. Next week, we'll conclude our series with a must-see segment on the health insurance companies. I can't wait to get stuck into them. Don't miss it.